Welcome to Urban X Real Talk Fitness Radio, where we challenge fitness between your ears. I'm your host, Tiaja. Spring has always been my favorite time of year. In fact, the only season that even affectionately comes close is fall. Now, I suppose I am a change romantic at heart. That is, someone who is captivated by the power and possibility of transformation. Certainly, change is inevitable. But transformation? Well, both spring and fall represent that to me. They symbolize the need for change, that in order for life to continue unabated, change must occur. Think about that for a minute. Change is necessary. Now, one of the life lessons we should have learned before COVID-19 is that change is a requirement for the continuance of life. We human beings go through seasonal changes as well. That too is inevitable. However, we have within us the power to not only master the seasons of our lives, but also to co-create the landscape. What do I mean by that? Well, the earth itself is not responsible for what happens during its seasons. So if severe storms and earthquakes dominate the landscape, it has no choice or say in the matter. But unlike the earth and its seasons, we have been given the ultimate power and authority of choice. Much like the earth, we are powerless victims of the storms and quakes of life, but we have the power to refuse participation in them. Thus, we can rise above them. Now, I know we seldom think of choice except politically, but choice is the one power human beings wield that no other living organism in the animal or plant kingdom possesses. It is the one power we have that controls the outcome of the inevitability of seasons. In our lifetimes, we will all face challenges and stumbling blocks that at the time seem insurmountable. Indeed, many of you may be facing such challenges now on a personal level. We are certainly facing such a trial nationally as well as internationally, yet we still have our power of choice. I want you to deeply consider what I am about to ask you. I am sincerely hoping that the question itself does not offend anyone or conjure painful memories of any kind, because that is not my intent for asking. Anyway, here it goes. How did people survive the Holocaust or slavery? Don't answer, just think about that. It is hard to imagine, isn't it? But what is even more difficult to fathom is how those survivors used their power of choice in such dire circumstances where they seemingly had none. After all, they were not free. They were beaten and tortured. They were killed. They were subjugated to every unimaginable evil, yet somehow they survived. What power did they possess within that gave them the strength and permission to change the articles of their seasons of discontent? What unseen transformations took place? What freedom does one have in shackles? While imprisoned for denouncing the domestic slave trade, William Lloyd Gates wrote the following: "High walls and huge the body may confine, and iron gates obstruct the prisoner's gauge, and massive bolts may baffle his design. And vigilant keepers watch his devious ways, but scorns the immortal mind such base control. No change can bind it, and no cell enclose. Swifter than light it flies from pole to pole, and in a flash from earth to heaven it goes. It leaps from mount to mount, from vow to vow. It wanders plucking honey, fruits, and flowers. It visits homes to hear the fireside tale, and in sweet converse pass the joyous hours. 'Tis up before the sun roaming afar, and in its watches wearies every star." Now, if I could get you to see and understand how powerful you are, you would not wait for anyone else's permission to live out your dreams, nor to make the necessary choices to walk boldly into your destiny. But somewhere between K through 12, you were taught through implication that you were born with fixed abilities, and that those who achieve at the highest levels do so because of their genetics or some mysterious gifts. You were told that our brains are fixed and that you simply do not have the aptitude for certain topics and abilities. Well, such false self-impressions are omnipresent and negatively impact all aspects of our everyday lives. However, when we let go of the idea that our brains are fixed and we stop believing that our genetics determine our lives or pathways, and learn that our brains are incredibly adaptable, we move to a higher bracket of progress. Why? Because only then do we begin to realize the power of choice, the inherent knowledge that every time we make a decision, our brains change and reorganize our lives. But remember, even indecision is a decision. And even when we patently choose to do nothing, it is registered in the brain and every cell as a choice. In these unprecedented, uncertain times, one narrative rings true, and that is, you still have the power of choice, which is to say, you have the power to not only choose how you act, but react to all that is going on. And I'm not talking about donning a mask or social distancing or virtual communication. I am much more interested in how we treat one another. That if COVID-19 has instilled anything, it has taught us empathy. I keep hearing a similar refrain that we are all in this together. Still, I do not see the togetherness, particularly on social media. That too is a choice. We are choosing to remain separate and in many instances apathetic. Now, don't get me wrong, I can clearly see all the good that is being done as well. I even applaud many of the corporations who are giving back in a major way during this crisis. I see the organizational outreach, but here's my issue. I just don't see enough mindfulness, compassion, or gratitude. Our brains are not wired or fixed for those either. Each is a choice, a decision to move and experience life on an alternate path. Life as we understand it is only available in the here and now, yet we spend most of our lives building something at the expense of tearing everything else down, like people. Too often we destroy people in the name of success and personal achievement. But why? COVID-19 slowly showed up on our fear radar in December of 2019, and by January 10th, 2020, fear had changed to panic. An alarm pushed our brains into a state of self-preservation, and with that came a new level of distrust, complete with a new vocabulary. So we quickly gave up our power of choice behind the fragile security of locked doors and masks, and the future was no longer something we looked forward to, but dreaded. No longer did we possess the power to dilute the narrative with positive thinking, because everywhere we looked, everything we heard, everything we feared touching reminded us that COVID-19 was lurking, omnipresent, omnipotent. No longer were we able to diagnose this crisis with vivid insight because we were afraid that the people we loved might die, or God forbid, so might we. Somehow we could no longer see as a nation, indeed a world community, that though we are apart, we are all in this together. How sad it is for us to forget that things happen in life, good and bad, and we don't get to determine the timeline, that our power against any enemy, whether from without or within, is our power of choice. COVID-19 isn't even the first killer disease of the 21st century, nor will it be the last. Remember SARS, MERS, and H1N1? As a race, and yes, there is only one race, we humans have survived much tougher times when scientific labs and esteemed teams of immunologists or virologists did not exist. Thank God they do. But my point is, we have been here before and regrettably did not learn the primal lesson any deadly disease or contagion can teach us. That is, as corny as it might sound to 21st century ears, we are our brother's keeper. That fear and hatred and distrust of our neighbor are choices, albeit powerful choices, lasting choices. But so too is love. Dear friends, I wish above all things that you prosper just as your soul prospers. You've been listening to Urban X Real Talk Fitness Radio with your host Tiaja. Until next week, as always, walk in health and peace.